Learn how to make triangles, ovals, and more. Then fill them quickly while making this mosaic. We've been working so far as though we have traditional media, such as markers, pastels, and charcoal. But there's another workflow for Procreate which you'll find used commonly. This one makes shapes, then fills them, then does some small amount of shading or decoration to those shapes. In the next 2 lessons, we'll look at the tools for this workflow, with shapes and fills and reference layers in this lesson, and masks in the next. For an example, I'm going to make an image of a woman on a beach at sunrise, so I'll introduce figurative drawing as a bonus. So how we're going to start this is we're going to start with a blank canvas, and you can just use the screen size as we usually do. For a brush, I'm going to use something a little different this time. I'm going to use under inking, I'm going to use a studio pen. And you'll also need the eraser to be probably inking, and again, studio pen will be very helpful for what we'll be doing a little later. I'm going to set my color to black, and again, I'm going to just use the RYB basic colors as my palette. So we're set to go here. For best results, I would not use an Apple Pencil for this. Try using your finger or a capacitive stylus like these. The Apple Pencil will cause some problems with the fills we'll be using later in this lesson. And what I'm going to do is start by making a little line, and then another little line. And you can connect the two if you want, like this, if it makes it easier. And this essentially shows the shoulders and the hips and the spine to give you some idea of how a figure is put together. And what I'll do first is I'll draw a triangle like this, and I'll hold down my finger until it turns like that into a triangle, and I'll let it go. And you can see up at the top it says edit shape. If I hit that, I get a selection of different things I can make this. I can make this a triangle, a quadrilateral, a polyline, or an ellipse. Now I'm going to use a triangle for this. And as you see, once we edit the shape, it's got little handles on it. And I'm going to move those little handles so that they cover up over my shoulder line that I have here. And the point will go right where the intersection of that spine is. Now, I can also use these other handles if I want to move back and forth along the entire, stretching entire side if I want to, but I don't need to do that here. So I'm just going to put it together like that. Okay. Then I'll tap once, and that sets it, and now we have our first triangle. I'm going to do a second triangle. I'm going to use the same thing I did before, and I'm going to make it about this big here. And I'm going to let it go, and edit shape, and I'll make a triangle. And I'm going to try to make it as close to the center of this shape as I can get it, but about halfway up, so like about like that. And that'll be my second shape, which looks pretty good. And I'll scoot this up just a little bit. Okay, and tap again, and that's the second shape we're going to be doing. All right, let's go for our third shape. And you're going to want to move the paper down a little bit because you're going to go off the canvas here. I'll draw it down, another triangle like this. Okay, and edit shape. I want a triangle for this again. And match up those points like so. And you'll see we have a little bit of a gap. You don't want gaps on this, so you're going to redo the whole thing, or you can do something else. Now, I've got this almost right now, so I'm just going to scoot over this little dot on the bottom here for the lower part of the triangle. I'm going to scoot it so that it's pretty much right under the point of the other triangle, like so. Okay, and for our purposes, we don't want lines like this, so if you zoom in and draw a straight line, you'll get a straight line after holding it down, and we can just do a line created like that, and that can solve that problem quickly as you're doing this. All right, now I'm going to do another line, and that'll be from this point up here down to about here, and I'll make it just look like that. Should be about right. I need its shape. I'm going to move this point just a little bit off like that. Okay. So we've got now that line made, and we can make another shape like this, and that's going to be an oval or a circle. And so I'm going to make a circle shape here. Okay, I'll edit shape, and I get my ellipse. I can make it a rectangle. I can make it a circle. I'm going to use a circle for this, but I can drag in the center of it and move it down a little bit. So I'm going to move it about right there. Okay, And I can tap again. And now I'm going to make one more set of lines here from the circle and going down like this. And I'll do it about like that. Okay, so again, I'm off the page here. If you do the edit shape, you'll see that the handle is off the page. That's important as well for what we're going to be doing shortly. And then I'll do another line just like that. And if by some chance you get your color sampler starts doing things like this on you, just remember to go back to black and fix it so that you're using black. So now draw another line. Make that one a little closer. I'm going to add the shape a little bit so that I have it here. And I'm going to make that just a little more tapered on the line here. So I've got something that looks like that. Okay, so now I've got that line. I'm going to make two more circles so we can play around with circles. So I can make another circle up here. Edit the shape, and I'm going to make it a circle again. And if you move a circle around, it's going to become an ellipse again. So you can sort of do that. And if you put back the circle, it's going to change the shape again. That's fine. I'm going to just go to the ellipse here and make it something like that. It just has to be a somewhat round like that for these. Okay, tap that and do another one over here about the same size. Like that. Okay, and I can see if I can get that one to circle. That's fine. All right, and that gives us our ball and socket joints on the shoulders, which I can now put some more lines in. I'm just going to do 3 lines. And this creates an ellipse. And I don't want an ellipse, but you can actually make it a quadrilateral or a rectangle. And either of those will sharpen up the lines. And I can now move these lines around so that they are something like that. I'll put another circle here. It just makes for good reference. And of course, this is the elbow. And it makes it easier for me to figure out how wide this line should be when I'm bending it. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. And get a little thing like that. And I'll do one more line here for an oval. And that gets me my hand. And so now I have my hand here. And I'll do the same thing on the other side now. I'll do a rectangle. You can go through the whole rectangle if you want. It just makes life a little more difficult later. And it says polyline for this one. So it's fine. So I'm just going to scoot it up a little. Tap that. Make another circle. Make it a little bigger. Edit the shape. Move it down a little bit by dragging outside of the shape. Tap it anywhere else on the page. And then do one more rectangle here. And this one got a little too big, so I'm just going to, by moving my cursor before I let it go, I can change the size. And I'll put a hand up this way. And let's turn it like that. And I need this a little flatter, so I'm going to scoot this over on the ellipse and down. And finally, I can put in a head. So I'll tap one more time, make another ellipse, let that finger sit on this, and then edit the shape. I'm going to move it down just slightly. And that looks kind of good, so I'm good with that. I'll make one more triangle to attach everything together. And I'll just move the triangle right into the head here so that I've got the rest of the shoulders. If you look at this now, let me pull back a little, we've got ourselves a pretty nice looking abstract model to play with. Now I'm going to also put some clothes on her, so let's go put some clothes on this. And let's start with some shorts, which is relatively easy. It's just a square like this. And then we make a rectangle. And if you want to angle in so it's a little more trapezoid looking like that, that's great. And there's going to be a change in the legs here, so we're going to make one more thing here. The leg with the circle is actually a leg that's in front and tilted a little bit. So I want to change it so that this is a shorter amount of shorts than the one on the other side. So the back one should have more shorts on it because it isn't bunched up as much. So again, I'm going to edit that shape, and let's go in here a little more detailed. And I can move around those points again so they're on the intersections of everything, so it doesn't look like there's too many extra lines here. And I've now got that. And so now I've got her shorts figured out. And for her top, I'm just going to do a very simple top here. And so I'm just going to make a curve like this. Okay. And you see it creates an arc. And again, we can edit the shape, and I can move around the points of the arc here. And so that's another one of the shapes that you can use here. Again, I want to make sure that I get it right where it is. And this I'm going to try to get that last point pointed towards the triangle below it, like so. So we've got her in some kind of tank top type thing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tap that, and we've got our image. Now, you're going to want to do a couple of cleanup things. We've got particularly the spine cleanup, and that's where you're going to go to the eraser, and just in a few places, very carefully, and I usually make this a smaller size pen for this, just to erase out some of those areas. It'll make the next steps much easier if you do that. Okay, and so I did that one, and I'm going to do one more of these because I think it'll help. It was down here, and I'm going to show you another trick with this in a second after we look at something. Okay, so I have a figure here. Now, what if I wanted to fill this figure? The easiest way to fill a figure is just drag from the paint palette and drop it right into your image. And you can see, like I just did there, I'll do it again, I'll do it on the shorts here, is if I just drag from my color, it drags the color and puts it in. Okay, and you could do that to the whole image. Now, I usually don't do that. I usually do this on layers, and we're going to explain a lot more of why that's important later, but it also makes changing around your images a lot easier, as we'll see right now. So I'm going to go over here to layers, and I'm going to make a bunch of layers. Okay, and then I'm going to do one other thing. On layer 1, you'll find that there is a thing called reference. Okay, and reference makes this image the reference image for everything else. So, for example, if I go to layer 2 right now before I hit reference, and I tap black, if I now fill with black anywhere on this screen, it's going to fill the whole screen. Okay, let me undo that. You know, if I tried it in the image, it's still going to fill the whole screen, because right now layer 2 doesn't have anything on it, so there's no boundaries. And what fill works on is that there is a boundary in place for it to stop against. Now, if you turn on reference to one of your layers, it will take the solid areas and use those on all the other layers that you have available. So if I go to layer 2 now, and let's just change over to, let's say, blue. Okay, and I put that anywhere here, you can see what happens. It starts filling them in. Now, I'm going to undo that again because I want to show you one more trick. I'm going to go back to my reference layer. Okay, because you just saw what happened, it fills boundaries. If there is a gap anywhere in that line, it will use that and bleed into it. So if I want to fill an area all at once, I'm going to go back to my eraser. I'm just going to make it very small. It doesn't have to be too big. And I can just make an erasure line that goes through a whole bunch of things like I did right here. So you can see all those erasure lines here. I'm going to do one across this way, and I'm going to do one here. Okay. Now if I take this blue, you see what happens. Most of them were able to get it, not all of them. Let's do this one, and we get the rest of it. And that makes it much easier to get all that blue stuff without having to fill each individual blue part by itself. You may want to fill those because you may want to do them in different colors. That's perfectly acceptable. But we're going to just do this quick, so I'm just going to do a quick and dirty way, and that's a nice quick and dirty way to do this. I've got my first layer, so I've got that done. Now, I did this on the reference layer, so I'm going to undo that. And I know I've got a little bit of an error right here on this reference layer, so I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so it gets all of it. Go up to layer 2, and do all of that in one shot. I got only 2 other pieces I want to get. I'm going to get the bottom of the shorts. Okay. And now I've got shorts. Okay. Next on my list is probably going to be, let's put on layer 3 here. Let's get some flesh tones. Now, for flesh tones, you've got a whole bunch of options depending on what flesh tone this particular person is. I usually work from orange, okay? And there's a whole range of colors you can use from orange, starting around here in the saturation and brightness, and you can make an arc around like this to get all kinds of cool browns, for example, as you change your color. Some people will go a little darker into the reds, and they'll do the same thing. I'm really like to stay with the oranges, and sometimes I'll even go to the yellows and be in these light orange yellows and stuff like that and work from there. But we're just going to use orange this time, and I'm just going to pop one right there. And now I have my color, and I'm going to be on layer 3 for my flesh tones. And I can start filling things in. Again, if I use an eraser on the reference layer, I can save myself a little bit of work by going back here to layer 3 now. And that fills all that in, and that saves a little bit of time. You can fill all this in by yourself if you'd like, but I tend to like to cheat sometimes on this. And then you can go through here and fill all this in. And get down here. And she's in a nice little tank top there. Okay, so we've got that now done. I can now take care of my legs here. And I made guidelines here so that I'm going to keep to this part of the leg, and that's actually going to be part of the leg in the back. So we go like that. And you're starting to see what we got here. Let's go make another layer. Layer 4, and I'll make that her top. And I think I'm going to make that red. And we get a nice red top. And I've got that part on the bottom. Maybe she'll have a little bit of flesh tone in that too. So let's go back here to layer 3. And since I don't remember my flesh tone is, I can just go over here, tap on one of the colors that's already existent, and pop that in so that I've got it like that. All right, so I got my figure. And I could add hair and a whole bunch of other stuff, but this should be enough for what we're going to be doing. And now I have this. And if you can see over here, everything we've done. We've made different layers for different parts of the figure. Here's the next step we're going to do is we're going to make some background layers. And what I want to do with the background layers is not use the reference layer. So let's see what happens if I have the reference layer on. If I have layer 5 and I go change that, I'm going to change my color here to, let's say, the dark gray. And I make a line. And I try to fill in that line. It'll fill everything, okay? Because reference layer is on. You have to turn reference layer off in order to fill on a regular layer. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to undo that. And undo the line. I'm going to go over here to reference. I would turn off reference first, then go back to layer 5. And now I can put that layer line in there. And hold it down to make it straight. And now I have a layer line. And now I can fill that. And it fills all the way. Now, of course, it's on top of everything. And I really want this on the background. So I'm going to drag it down. I'm also going to drag layer 6 down. And I need one more layer. So I'm going to make another layer 7 here. And since I'm on layer 7, I'll start with layer 7 next. And what I'm going to do with layer 7 is, let's tap out of here. Let's change my color to blue. And that'll get me another one of my layers without any extra lines on it. So I can go now to layer 7. Okay. And I can go ahead and make a line. Make a blue line. Let's do it about there. And hold it down so I get a straight line. And now I can start putting blue in that. Okay, and it fills the whole thing with blue. Now, of course, it's filling the whole thing with blue. If you look at the layers, it's actually above layer 5. So I want to move layer 5 above this. And then I'm probably going to move layer 6 down because I'm going to put layer 6 underneath all that. And now I'm going to highlight layer 6 and do the same thing. But, you know, I really don't even have to make a line here because it's going to be all the way in the background. So I can make all of that orange to make my orange sunrise or sunset, and there we go. So now we've got all of those. And you can see how I've done this. 5, 6, and 7 are all those layers. Now I'm going to put above layer 7 here one more layer, and that's going to be the sunshine layer. So I'm going to go over here to yellow, and I can make a circle. Make it a circle. Tap here again. I've got my yellow already, so I can just fill it in. And now I have a circle. Now, if I put it behind layer 7, it's now coming up above the horizon. And so we've started to make a picture. And that's as far as I want to take you on this one, is you've got a whole bunch of things you've learned. You've learned about reference layers, you've learned about fills, and you've learned how to use shapes to make a figure. And just about anything else by using a construction method like this. Now, this is very common for people to use this method. So your challenge for this week is to try to make this figure again, and just try to copy what I did here. And you've got all the lines. Just follow along and make one of these, or try some other figures using this technique to see what you can come up with. In our next video, we'll discover how to give this image volume and how to glow a little bit using masks and charcoal like this. So make sure to hit like and subscribe to get all the upcoming lessons. There's lots of cool stuff you're not going to want to miss. Until next time, keep creating.